Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Wired for Logic. I have my guest today, Dave Craighead. He's an engineer, and I'll let him kind of introduce himself, what he does for his company, and how he got started in the engineering field.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm an engineer. I'm a licensed civil engineer in the state of California. My company, Engineering, I started in 2021. It's a construction management and stormwater management firm. So we provide consulting services for a lot of public works projects for public agencies, local agencies, state agencies, and some private work as well. I got it started with this in 2021. I started Cap Engineering. Prior to that, I started kind of at the bottom. I was a laborer for a company. I was in the military, so I start there. I was in the military, and I had met some.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
What branch?
I was in the Air Force.
Okay.
2000. I actually joined September 25th, 2001.
Okay.
So it was a different vibe at that time, and sort of a lot of unknowns and a lot of I remember through going through training the entire time, there was a lot of like, hey, if you don't want to be here, you could just go home. It's okay. It was such a weird kind of like, we don't know what's going to happen. We could all just be moved into the Army and like go somewhere because we don't know what's going on and we don't know what's going to happen. So if you just want to leave, it's okay. Like you can just
a lot of unknowns for sure.
Yeah. Ring the figurative bell and head home, which was bizarre kind of attitude. But yeah, I got out of the Air Force. And while I was there, I'd met some foundation drillers and they said, hey, when you get out, do you want to come work with us in Hawaii? I'm like, oh, you going to pay for me to go out to Hawaii and like, you pay me money to work in Hawaii? Like, yeah, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And so that's
sounds like a pretty nice place to work.
Yeah, it was. It was really great. I mean, we worked a lot of hours and it was tough work, but I was young and didn't care. You know, when you're young, you just work as hard as you need to get things done.
Yep.
And so I really loved it. I worked on a bridge just outside of Pearl Harbor. And, I love the attitude. I love like the people that are on those projects. I just liked the atmosphere. And I knew I wanted to build large scale projects like that. And I just didn't know really what to do necessarily, but I knew that I didn't want to be the guy with the shovel, which is who I was at the time. Like, I don't think I could last in this role. So I saw, whatever this clipboard guy's doing. I went and talked to him and he was a civil engineer. And I was like, hey, I guess I'm going to go to college and I'm going to go be a civil engineer then. And that was it. I went to school, got my degree, got my P, and then started working, in different capacities, my way up the ladder, various companies on the contractor side. So building things, I built bridges, worked on the American River Levee in California, worked on Bureau Reclamation projects, Army Corps projects, military projects, state projects, just a lot of different types of projects, which gave me a good perspective on problem solving for really any problems early on. I just got so much exposure. I just saw so many different types of issues that and I had good mentorship, which is, critical, especially when you're new.
Oh yeah.
I remember showing up to a job site I didn't know what a 10-wheeler was. 10-wheeler is a very common piece of equipment in the construction world. It is a truck that hauls material, and it is at every single job site in the country. They have 10-wheelers probably there. If it's a large job, probably they have 10-wheelers. Everybody knows what a 10-wheeler. I didn't even know what it was. They're like, hey, how many 10-wheelers do we have today? I'm like, oh, I think we had quite a few 10-wheelers. And I don't know what to say because I don't know like what a 10-wheeler is. And so I learned quickly what those were, along with everything else that I could at the time. Just try to be as much of a sponge as I could, and really learn to like lean on other people pretty early on in my career. Like, because I didn't know, I wasn't brought up in that world. I kind of joined into it,
right?
A little bit later than some of the other people that kind of grew up more around it. I had to lean on other people and their knowledge and on things that to them was super basic, but to me was like brand new. So it's just like, oh yeah, great. Yeah. Scraper. All right. I know what that is now, and I kind of carried that all the way through into when I started my own company. I'm like, okay, well, relationships are so critically important. I mean, being able to call somebody if you have an issue and be like, hey, I'm trying to put this bridge out in this remote, forest and there's limited access. What do you think? Like, oh yeah, we did that, and this is what this is the method that we used, and it worked for us. Or like, we tried that and it didn't work, and
Pulling from somebody else's experience.
yeah, it's so important. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to expect yourself to figure it out and to do it on your some problems, like even basic problems. It's nice to have a sounding board. Like, even things that I've done over and over, I'll call other professionals, acquaintances, or colleagues and say, hey, we're going to put this walking trail in out on the bluffs. And this is what I think is the best sort of means and methods to go about it. If I want to put, I don't put estimates together for contractors, but I'll put cost, budgets together for owners so they have a good idea of what things might cost or how much time it might take. And so, like, if I built it, this is how I would do it. And they might have
Right.
a totally different perspective because they, just do things differently, use different equipment or see things differently. And I really value their opinion because, I may not agree with it, but it gives me the ability to really look at my approach and either validate that no, I think it's right, or no, hey, I need to relook at
Right.
this because I didn't think about the coastal erosion and like maybe we should be further back or whatever it is that's brought up. Like
They're
maybe didn't think of it.
reinforced. Yeah, they're either going to reinforce your approach or they might give you an additional idea you had thought of. So it's always good to be open to other people's input and things like that.
Yeah, and it translates across industries too because you don't
Agreed.
necessarily have to be a civil engineer to like understand project management structure and company, like how to organize companies or how to organize resources. Like, those things translate across tons of industries. Like, just talking high level stuff with all kinds of different people, you get ideas and perspectives that you
Yep.
could apply to something that's totally different that fits, what you're trying to do. And it's great.
I agree 100%. And I have people in my industry. I work in the tech field. So there's, by the same rationale, there's different ways to approach things. So if you're doing like a migration for a client from an on-prem server to the cloud, there may be 10 different MSPs and there's 5 different ways to approach it. Not everyone has the same idea of step 1 is this, step 2 is that, step 3 is the other thing. And not everyone may agree that it even needs to be moved to the cloud. Maybe there's a better way to do it with it on-prem. So yeah, there's definitely different approaches. My dad, he used to be an architect. He's now a real estate agent, but back in the day, he used to be an architect, and that's where I got my love for technology. Because when he first started out, he first started his architectural firm probably about mid '90s, and at the time, you couldn't go just get a computer off the shelf like you can at Best Buy now. You had to build the computer, and so I'd watch him build PCs and load the operating system and put AutoCAD on there and all that kind of stuff. And it was difficult back in the day because nothing ever worked right the first time. It was like fiddling around with it for 5 hours just to get the computer to start. And then once you got to start, then you have to put the operating system and then any applications you want. People nowadays don't appreciate the difference in technology from back then to now. So if something doesn't work now, it's just like, oh, piece of junk technology. Well, you think piece of junk technology now, you should have been using technology back in the 90s and you'd really think piece of junk technology. What have you seen in your industry in terms of like the technology from when you first started to now, like both from the engineering perspective and just general technology in your industry?
I mean, contractors in general, they're so much more efficient with building, especially large scale things, because they have GPS units on their equipment that can just tell them exactly where to set the elevations at on their blade and or to lay down rock, and it's just like they can blow through thousands of feet of road or trail in a week, where before it was, it's 90% faster now, it seems like, than it used to be, because there'd be guys out there with grade setters and they'd go and they'd mark, a 10th low, a 10th high, even when you're hitting your final grade, and it's just like, oh, you got to go back through, do it again. Now they can just go through and get it so close right on the get-go before they go and check everything, and it's like, oh, we're perfect here. This is great. We're ready to sign off on this. And so from a watching projects being built standpoint, like those like advances in technology have been hard to even keep up with as they
Right.
came around. It's like, you can do what now? Like, oh, that's pretty incredible. I worked on a project. There's a light show on the Bay Bridge and the San Francisco Bay Bridge.
Okay.
And that was one of the projects that I managed, and it was a privately funded project, but it's on a bridge, and the bridge is owned by the state, and there's a lot of agencies that are involved in like regulatory agencies that are involved in that project that want to have a say in what's allowed and what isn't, from like, bird migrations, the Coast Guard, or, they don't want lights on a bridge if it's the navigation issue, or that particular bridge goes between San Francisco and Oakland. So it's both cities that also have, a say in what they would like to see. And then all the businesses all along the waterfront. And there's a lot of money in the city of San Francisco, and all of those, wealth individuals, like they have somehow they get a say in things too,
Yeah.
because they donate money, because it's a privately funded art installation. And well, that project itself is 25,000 nodes, and each node's 3 lights essentially, so 75,000 lights. That has a show that's in sync, that plays every night, and it will play a different show every night, and it will never repeat for 10 years. Like the program just is different every night. So everybody that goes down the waterfront watches that show.
Wow.
That's their show, like nobody else got to see that one, and
That's
because there's so many
crazy.
different lights, there's so many different variations that they can do. And there's I think 280 computers that were all wired into like a mainframe computer that ran the whole show, and it was all, you could go online and watch the show on your little laptop screen. You could see every tiny little dot going off, and from a civil engineering standpoint, like, it was just incredible that this could be done. It was all, software guys and artists behind the sort of art of it, and then making it all work, and what equipment needs to be installed in order for it to be able to keep up. Like, we ran fiber, I don't know how many miles of fiber on the bridge to make sure that we could get everything could talk, all the computers could talk to each other in a way that didn't, have any lag.
Yep.
It was incredible. I mean, it was an incredible project, and when it opened up, it was just like, look at what can be done. Like, this is crazy that this can even be done. And it was just thought up by, I think that it was birthed at Burning Man, because somebody had built some light installation on top of their van so they could find it at Burning Man, and that was sort of for the idea for, how big of a light thing could we do?
Yeah.
How big could we do? Like a whole, let's find the biggest bridge and see, and the Bay Bridge is 2 miles across. It's a 2-mile long light show. And, through teaming up with some technology companies, and figuring out like how you could adapt the existing technology into this, art installation. Like, okay, well, it all exists. Like, how do we make it work for this? And then making sure that we could get all the agencies on board, because, it's not exactly structurally necessary for the bridge to operate. The state and transportation agencies at first are like, no, we're not doing that. We're not strap a bunch of, like, how are you going to strap it? How's it going to be safe? How are you going to hold the cabinets up? Like, what if there's a windstorm? What if there's a tidal wave or something? I mean, it's not going to be a tidal wave that tall, but like, what about all the potential catastrophes that could happen, and then how are we going to explain that away? Like, well, we just really
Earthquake.
wanted to
Yeah.
do it, and so we had to go through like all these different iterations. Okay, well, how are we going to secure all these lights? Like, how are we going to secure these cabinets to the bridge without like compromising the structure, and making it secure enough to where like it'll last? What do you make a cabinet out of that houses these components out on a bridge that's going to withstand the weather? Like, it's just salt air getting blown in every night, and it blows through there every night, and it's very corrosive, and it's very damaging. And like, how do you design things that will hold up? Like, how do you fasten everything to the cables without compromising the cables? Because the cables expand and contrast. I mean, they're 250 feet of cable that, like, it expands and contrasts a lot. I forget the exact numbers, but it's enough to where like you can't restrict it, and you can't just tie another cable to it. It's going to have a different expansion ratio when it gets hot, and it's not gonna, it's just gonna snap off whatever fasteners are there. So like, how are we gonna do it, and like, how much slack do you put in? Just all the things that you have to think through. So it's
Yeah.
just, um,
But when you're
uh,
doing something for the first time, that makes it all that much more difficult. I mean, I was watching a special on, speaking of shows and things like that are put on for spectators, the fountain show in front of what is it, the Bellagio?
yeah, the Bellagio, yeah.
They had to go through all kinds of engineering to get that to work correctly. There were like the little nozzles were freezing over at one point. when it was spraying the water. And so they had to figure out how to keep those from freezing over and just, yeah, it sounds simple. It's like, oh, you're just spraying a bunch of water in the air. It just goes in sequence, right? Yeah, it's easy. You're just putting a bunch of lights on a bridge. How hard could that be? I put lights on my house all the time. No, there's a lot of engineering that goes into that. So it's not as simple as slap a string of lights on there and call it a day. That's way more involved than that. And then having to deal with all the regulatory stuff behind it. How did you get everyone to agree?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is get everybody excited, like excited about the project. It's not, hey, can we do it? And these are like the things that we're going to do to mitigate risk to the structure. And we're going to make sure that we cover all the bases. No, it's like, hey, look, this is a huge, huge, huge benefit to the community. This bridge has been forgotten. It's next to the Golden Gate Bridge. Everybody only talks about the Golden Gate Bridge. The Bay Bridge is the workhorse of the Bay Area. It has something like 400,000 cars goes across it every single day. It is.
Wow.
It was built the same time, it was built around the same time as the Golden Gate Bridge. And it's just like an engineering feat. The west span of the Bay Bridge is the span that we put the lights on. It's two bridges that are basically built together with a giant concrete center anchor in the middle. That's this huge, huge hollow concrete anchor that it's just incredible that it was even able to be constructed and completed. And so we just highlighted that the Bay Bridge needed a little bit of its own personality, the Bay Area, they're all the cities are very proud, and they want to have their landmarks also be landmarks that they celebrate. And the Bay Bridge, it got the Bay Lights, and the Bay Lights now are like an important part of San Francisco, Oakland, Bay Area. And yeah, I mean, you watch any 49ers game or any sports games out there, like they always cut away to the Bay Lights, and they show the Bay Bridge with the Bay Lights on it, if it's an evening game, because it's just part of it now. And so
Right.
it started with just like, hey, look, we got to figure out a way to do this because this is going to be super important, and you get enough people excited about it, and then the ball starts rolling downhill, and then it's just, okay, well, who do we need to talk to? Oh, the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard has a little installation on Yerba Buena Island, which is the island in between San Francisco and Oakland. So like, okay, let's talk to the Coast Guard. Like, what are your concerns about having lights on the bridge? Like, what is that you would not want about it? Like, we don't want it this bright. It has to be less than this bright, and it can't flash in these sequences because it could be a navigation issue. So it's like, okay, well, we just won't do that.
Yeah.
And if we don't do that, then you guys are okay with it? Yeah, we're okay with it. Okay. Oh, and then there's the, biologist. It's like, okay, well, we don't want to mess with the bird migrations. Like, well, what do we need to do to make sure that the birds aren't messed with in their migration patterns? Like, well, they have their requests, and like, okay, well, we can do that. We can accommodate that. And then so you just go down, you start checking off agencies, and as you go, you just try to keep everybody excited about it because you want everybody to be on the same team. You don't want anybody to feel like they're being forgotten. You want everybody to have a voice and listen to their opinions and try to, reasonably accommodate as much as you can. And yeah, then we had a great team of people who are behind getting funding and talking to the right, people about trying to get money. And that was a big part of it too, because we had said like, look, this is not going to cost any like tax dollars. Like this will be 100% privately funded, and all the energy use will be offset by solar farms that are built offsite. And we're going to generate enough energy, like offset any of our energy use here for this project. So it'll be like a completely sort of clean project,
Okay.
and it'll be completely privately funded, and we'll take care of the maintenance of it for however many years. I think it was 6 years. We'll maintain it. We'll go out there, and if there's lights that go out, we'll go replace them. And it was a huge undertaking. I mean, all the maintenance, the installation was a big undertaking, but then all the maintenance, like lights would go out, and it's okay. Well, that's 150 feet up above the bridge deck. Like we got to go get rigging and find a basket and find somebody to like go up in this little basket, which is winched up. It's the oldest technology. It's like the same way they built bridges like 100 years ago. Like they winched up this guy in a basket, and he would cut these zip ties. We use zip ties. And in the end, zip ties ended up being the best option to fasten the
Okay.
lights to the bridge
Good
because it
old
had
zip
just
tie. I
enough
like that. How
flex.
many
Zip ties.
thousands of zip ties?
Yeah, so many zip ties. So many zip ties. I bet you 100,000 zip ties out
Oh
there.
my gosh.
Yeah. And they're like these industrial zip ties too. So they're really kind of a robust zip tie, but yeah, just a zip tie, glorified zip tie.
I don't think I've ever heard the word robust and zip tie used in the same sentence together, but I like that. A robust zip
Yeah.
tie.
Yeah, yeah, not the kind you find in your garage, but
Yeah,
basically
definitely
the
not.
same thing. But yeah, lots of problems. I think we went through 5 different node designs because they just kept getting destroyed by the weather. Like the salt air would just get in there and knock them out, and we couldn't keep them sealed, and so we had to. It was Phillips that helped us with that project, and they were like, hey, whatever it takes, we're gonna make it work. And so they if a design didn't work, we'd tell them like, look, this is what failed. This is how it failed. What do you think? And we'd get together with their engineers and they would come up with a new idea. And then as we replaced things that failed, we would replace them with the new version. And then that would fail. And we're like, okay, well, they're failing like in this way. And sometimes it would be the leader cable that would fail. Sometimes it would be the node itself that would fail. And so we just kept trying to find a way to make it work. And it was really a thrilling project to be a part of because it was so visible. And it was so exciting because it was something that it felt like it had a lot of meaning behind it. Wasn't
Right.
it
And what a
wasn't
great feather to put in your hat too. Say, hey, I was part of that project.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Incredible
Yeah.
engineering feat.
Yeah, there's a documentary floating around about it called Impossible Light. There's a film crew out there that had filmed during the installation and ended up making a documentary out of it. I think it was nominated for an Emmy, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken. So it's a really interesting documentary because it kind of goes into all the nuts and bolts of that project. I don't know if we're talking too much about one particular project, but
No, that's fine. It's a very interesting project. I'm fascinated by technology, so that kind of stuff interests me, and I think it's neat that you were able to work directly with Philips to kind of work through some of those shortcomings in the design and iterate until you guys found something that worked. Well, so you have your own company now. What did you do in between? You said you started out as the guy with the shovel. You met the guy with the clipboard. You said, I want to be that guy. You decided to be a civil engineer. What have you done in between deciding to be a civil engineer and where you are running your company today? And then kind of lead us into some of the other things you've done and some of the challenges you've had with running your own company. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do.
yeah. So after I graduated and got my PE, I worked for a handful of different companies, mostly as like a project manager, overseeing construction projects, heavy civil construction projects on the contractor side. So it'd be
Okay.
the companies that you see out building roads or bridges and stuff when you drive by, like the big trucks, the big equipment. Working with them, building all kinds of various projects from city parks to highways, center medium safety barriers, which is those K-rail looking things in the middle of the highway. They keep getting more and more robust, and it's the word of the day. If
I
you
like
see, they
that.
just keep building them bigger and bigger, and so a part of the replacement projects of those, or I don't know if out where you're at, you have a lot of pay lanes or pay highways. Out here in California, we put in a lot of express lanes. And so working on express lanes projects and helping to work with on those types of projects. Um, Worked at a coal mine for a little while, kind of jumping around a little bit in the timeline, but worked at a coal mine as a mining engineer. There's a project out in Utah, and it was 300 and I think it was 380 feet, a new slope, they call it. It was basically a tunnel, a
Okay.
ventilation slope for a coal mine that was out there. There's a long wall, which is where they harvest all the coal, and they move it, through the coal bed. And as they get further and further along, they need, new tunnels for various things. This one was a ventilation tunnel and an emergency egress. So people could get out if they needed to through this tunnel as well, 20 foot by 20 foot or so. All dynamite, all drill blast muck. So it's and no diesel equipment. So it's a very unique project because everything's pneumatic. We had all our equipment was pneumatic. And so we had big, huge air lines going down into this tunnel, hooked all the way up to our equipment. And then it would be, high volume, low pressure air that moved all the equipment in order to
Wow.
remove the material after we blew it up with basically dynamite. I mean, it's different than dynamite nowadays, but basically the same thing. And so did
There's a
that.
gentleman I actually talked to a couple of weeks ago that was he's a mining engineer and he's actually in Utah. There's a lot of mining that occurs there, obviously. But yeah, it's interesting. He mentioned coal and some of the other materials that they mine there. I think copper is a big thing that they mine there, but sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue.
Yeah, copper, it's an open pit mine. I think in Utah, the big one, I think it's an open pit mine, so it's a little bit different technique. Coal mine is subterranean, but a lot of the same feeling, I guess. The atmosphere, the mining atmosphere, I think would probably translate across all the different types of mines. The miners, they call them tramp miners because they kind of move around and they just go, at least our guys, when I was there, they would just go wherever they were getting paid the most money. And so you would have guys show up one day. We had more than 100% attrition rate on our job site because guys would just leave. They're paying $3 more an hour to go to gold mine in Nevada. 3 of us are leaving tomorrow.
Wow.
hold on. We need you guys. Like, no,
Yeah.
that's our $3 more an hour. We got to go. It's like, oh, okay. I guess we got to figure out how to backfill these positions. And it was like that. I was there for a year, and it was like that the whole year. I mean, people were just quitting, and you try to sweeten the deal. You try to incentivize them in ways that you felt like were fair and reasonable that would keep them around. And it just didn't matter. Like, they would just leave. It would just, no matter what, someone else was paying more money somewhere else, or it was a little bit less miserable. It was pretty cold in the winter where we were. And yeah, they would just leave.
Did your HR department quit too with all that turnover?
Yeah, you would have thought. No, she was a trooper. There's a lot of learning that happened on that job. There was an old timer, general superintendent, came out. His name was JD, and JD came out to our job site. He didn't work directly on our job site, but he came out and he goes, I'm probably, I don't know, 21 or something at this point in time. He goes, this is the hardest job you'll ever have to do in your entire career. Never have to do another job like this that's even close to as hard as this job. And I'm thinking,
Yep.
well, I hope that's true, because this job is really not very easy. It was exciting because it wasn't easy. Like, it was a little bit of when you're young, you want to kind of test your limits. At least I did, and it tested me. I think we worked 6 days a week, and if you're awake, you're working. And it was me and the other project manager on the job. If we were awake, we were working. We stayed in the cabin 2 miles down a dirt road from our job site, and the closest gas station was an hour drive away. There's just nothing out there. And if you were awake, you went into work and you just worked because they needed the support. And then you went home to sleep, and you did that 6 days a week. And it was rough, but it was fun.
I mean, what do you do on your day off there? Your day off?
Well, you might have to go to town to get gas, So that's an ordeal just to get down there, get gas, get groceries, do your laundry. I mean, that's it, You probably have to work. I mean, one of the two of us during the winter had to plow the road. It was only the two of us, and we had this little 4-foot kind of sidewalk snowblower that we had to go up and down the road 3 times to get it to be wide enough for the next crew to show up to work. But it's 2 miles long, and we got 25 feet of snow over the winter. It's like all you're doing all night long is trying to keep the road clear enough just so the morning crew could come and relieve the day, the night crew. It was 2 12-hour shifts. And it was just, it was a real test. It was a real test to operate that job. And true to JD's words, I don't know if he's still around or not, but JD, you're right. That was the hardest job so far to date.
Oh, JD
knew what he was talking about. It was nothing. I think we had 6 guys go to the hospital, and I was sure 2 of them were, deceased. The back of it caved in because you blow 10 feet of a mountain out, and then you go in there with these 5 feet pieces of rebar, and you jack them up into the roof. We call it the back. Jack it up into the back with some resin. You drill a hole, you jack it up into the back with some resin, and then you move 4 feet over and you put another one, and you do that in a grid. And then that's sort of supposed to hold the mountain up, so you can go and pull another 10 feet, and you just keep moving like that, and you keep leapfrogging. And the problem with it is that, sedimentary layers, they're in layers, because it all settles and it forms a rock, and it's this big flat rock, and underneath it somewhere, and there's coal. And so when you go and blow out around, it's not going to be this smooth box. It's going to have these shelves in the back because it's going to fall and fail in that way. And so there's no great way to secure it with just you put a 5-foot piece of rebar through a 5-foot shelf. Well, that's not going to work because you got to get up into the next one if you're just right there. is you have to secure it into something else. You have to anchor it into something else if it's the face of that next shelf. We'd come up with ideas, and again, we would lean a lot on the miners because we were just kids. I don't know why they had us run that job. We were just kids. I was not a mining engineer. I went to school as a civil engineer in California. I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I just
So how did
leaned
you
on
end up
everybody
there at
else.
the mining place?
I just got cold called, and someone said, "Hey, you want to come out here and work at this coal mine?
Were they
It's
paying
miserable."
$3
I was
more
like,
than the other place you were working at?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was more money than I was being offered anywhere else. And they're like, it's miserable out here. And I'm not gonna lie to you, there's not a lot to do. And if you want to come out here, yeah, you can come out here. We need you. And I said, yeah, I'll be out there on Wednesday. I think I just packed I had a little Jeep Wrangler. I'm like, well, it's perfect car, perfect car for the mountains. I'll just drive up there
Sure.
and and then next thing I know, yeah, I was working at a coal mine and trying to figure it out and helping out in the ways that I could. We brought in all the experts we could. We brought in blasting experts. We brought in, anybody we could think of to help us better understand how to be safer, number one, because you don't want people getting hurt. First guy that gets hurt, you're like, okay, well, we got to not have that happen again. Like, what do we do? Do we put up, welded wire with these rebar? Do we put up shotcrete? How do we do it to make it more stable so we don't have to worry about this? And the short answer to that was the reason why they do it this way is because this is the best way to do it, according to people who knew better than me. So we tried to integrate some new safety measures and kept plugging away at it. But yeah, it was a huge learning experience that I carry with me. Anytime any job gets challenging nowadays, I reflect on that project and think there's not one person who quit from this job I'm on now, even though it's challenging. And back then you couldn't keep somebody there.
So what'd you do after the mining?
So I worked on a bunch of different projects, and some that were really exciting. I really enjoyed working like American River Levee repair project after Hurricane Katrina.
Okay.
The U.S. Army Corps went in and said, okay, well, this levee failed. We've got this massive levee system across the country. Let's go and look at all of them and see if any of them need to be, more robust. And
I see what you did there.
they identified all kinds of different. I think they're still repairing levees. I think they're still out there doing it. But yeah, working on the American River Levee, you're on the river, you're out there digging a hole and filling it with a bunch of slurry and then building it up a little bit and putting dirt back on top of it. It wasn't complicated, but it was a great project, and I really liked it. I recently put a bridge in Palo Alto that crossed over the US 101 highway. And that was a great project because there's so many technologies that are based in, Palo Alto and around that area. Google was right there next to us, and they had all their communication lines that went through their property from this side of the property across to that side of the property. And we had to work around not interrupting their service while like digging and putting in a bridge. And so we had to okay, well, how do you keep this fiber line live when you need to move it? Like, what do you do? So you had to call in people like, hey, I don't know what you have to do, but you tell us, and then we'll find somebody that can do that kind of work and make sure that you don't lose.
So if you had a fiber line that was running through some portion that you needed to put like a column or something, you'd have to figure out a way to reroute that.
Yeah. I mean, then there's gonna be some interruption, but okay, well, how do you minimize that interruption, or can you do it without interruption? So you bring in all the fiber people that you can think of to bring in, and you're like, okay, what would you do? What are our options? And
right,
because a half a day down for Google is not going to work, or whatever the company is, it's not going to work. They just can't do it. So we got to figure out a way to work around it. We can't move the column. The column's got to be there.
Right. I would imagine that you would run like a trench and run replacement lines, have those prepped and in place, and then kind of do a switch over and then abandon the other ones that are in the space of wherever the columns are going. Did you do something like that or something similar?
Yeah, that's exactly what was exactly the plan. So put all the new infrastructure in, test it, make sure everything's good, serviceable, and ready, and then do a quick swap over. It's incredible to realize how much actual influence those big companies have. This is a public project, public works project, paid for by tax dollars, administered by the state, installed by contractors hired that work for the state. And we're all there trying to make sure that all these companies are happy. You know, anything we can do to make sure they're happy. I almost said like to no limit. I mean, there's
Yeah.
limits obviously, but like it's just it's overwhelming to think about how much influence that everybody is sort of under at that level. Or you think that the state is the state and the feds are the feds and they do what they want, but really they don't. They're under
Well,
a lot of
Newsom
pressure.
doesn't want to get a call from Mr. Google
Yeah.
CEO saying, "Hey, your guys that are out here drilling these piers took down our internet for an hour." Doesn't want that phone call.
Yeah, and then he calls the head of Caltrans, and he calls the head of that district, and then he calls that project
Yep.
manager, and then he calls me.
Yeah,
What
you
are you
don't want to
doing?
be the receiving end of that phone call either.
No, no.
Where to
Earlier
go.
on in my career, I was working on a freeway project, and the head of Caltrans, public relations, he's like, if anything ever happens, doesn't matter what time, you call me. Here's my cell phone. I'd rather be ahead of it. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. I
Yeah.
was pretty young. I'll just like take that at face value then. So one night there was something to happen. A car flipped over, caught on fire. There's like people got injured, and it was a big ordeal. The highway got shut down. So I called them. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I go, hey, just want to let you know, this happened and this was what we did. This is our response. And we made sure to like do everything that we thought to do to keep everybody as safe as we could and cleared the, do everything we could think of to do. And these are the things that
Yeah.
we did. Let me know, like, if you have any questions, you need to know anything else. He's like, why are you calling me? Why are you calling me at 3 a.m.? Do not call me. Do not call me at 3 a.m. and hung the phone up. I'm like, okay, I guess I don't know
You
what
said
I
always
don't know what
call
needs to happen.
you, but also don't call me if it's okay. Got it.
Yeah, it's more like, I guess if the world is like, if it's like catastrophe, there wasn't a big enough issue. I thought,
No.
I mean, it was a huge issue for me. I was
A car
worried
flip,
that,
that's
I
a pretty
just thought
big deal, I
over,
guess, but maybe
yeah.
not to him.
I mean, my over under bar was if it was probably going to be on the news, he'd want to know about it. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. But apparently it was more like if the bridge fell down or something.
That's fair. That's fair.
Then,
So what
then
besides I mean, that bridge project that you're talking about over the 101, that sounded like a pretty big project. The bridge project with the lights, that was a huge project. What other large projects have you worked on that you're just like, this is incredible feat of engineering, or all the hoops we had to jump through to get it done, or what other ones come to mind?
engineering feats? I mean, there's so many incredible engineering feats. It's hard to say that anything that I've done really scales in comparison to that stuff. Exciting projects. I mean, right now there's a California coastal trail that goes all the way up and down the coast, or it will eventually. And there's some gaps in it, and we're working in Half Moon Bay at one of the gaps. Is a 2.5 mile gap, and we're putting in 14,000 feet of trails and a new staircase down to the beach and some parking lots and bathrooms. And it's exciting because it's one of the very first projects where there's new coastal like beach access. The regulatory agencies, they don't like the coastal ecosystem to be disturbed, essentially. So like the accesses that are existing to the beach are sort of what they want to maintain, and not necessarily add additional accesses that could cause erosion or coastal erosion, I guess, would be the biggest issue with them, or otherwise disrupt the ecosystem.
Right.
But this is new. This is a new staircase that's going to go down to the beach. It's a new parking lot and trail system that's it's going to be really nice. It's going to be great for the community. It's going to be great for people coming and want to hike down the coast. And there's going to no longer be a missing 2.5 mile gap. It'll be there, and there'll be, a new staircase down to the beach. And we're using sustainable materials that are the least invasive we could, like no concrete, no rebar, nothing like that for the staircase. Everything's going to be wood. Everything's going to be put together by hand. And there's no machines that are going to go down there. So it's it was a very thoughtful design that was put together by not me, by another engineer. I'm just helping manage the project, but they did what they could to try to make it fit in as well as they could and make it last as long as possible. It's really tough to do in coastal environments because a big winter with big storms, a coast can move back 6 feet. Like it could erode back fast. Last winter we got a lot of rain, and I think in some places around our project even we've got 3 feet difference in where the bluffs sort of start or end than they did when this project was originally designed. So we had to go and look at that and come up with a way to reroute portions of our trail to accommodate potential future erosion, and then also change some grading around where the bluffs are at to help reroute some of that water and get more sheet flow and less concentrated flows to help mitigate some of that erosion where it's in the worst spots. And
Yeah,
so
I
it's just an
forget with
exciting
in
project.
addition to engineering where everything is going, you also have to take into consideration water flow and erosion. That's a whole nother
Yeah, and
kettle
like
of, yeah.
the whole like stormwater management. I know it's been around for a while, but I still feel like it's a new program. Like the water regional water quality control board. It's all stems from I'm drawing a blank now on the original act, but it's like 1979. There's an act that was written saying like, look, we need to pay better attention to the way that stormwater is managed, because stormwater, it can get into all kinds of different areas that are contaminated and move that contamination into the waters of the US. And then all of a sudden it contaminates into, water
Water
body of
supply.
water. Yeah, and it could be a river, it could be a lake, it could be the ocean, but it's something that it's hard to get rid of once it's in there. The
Yeah.
only real way to get rid of pollutions is to dilute it, really. Like you just gotta wait almost until it dissipates enough to where it's okay again. And so they've gone through new iterations. They just came out with a new one in the general permit on like how to manage stormwater and what qualifies and what kinds of industries have to have permitting for their operations, and industrial permits. Industrial operations need to have permits, but also just like construction projects. Like I'm sure that any of these construction projects that disturb more than an acre of land, which is a lot of them, they need to have permitted coverage, and they need to manage their stormwater as part of their project. So like when we put in this new trail system and in these parking lots, like we have to think through where the water's going. The water's got to go somewhere. It doesn't just disappear, and you have to manage it. And you need to make sure that all the improvements that you're putting in are going to divert the water into places that it needs to go, and you're not creating any issues of new concentrated flows. And also like whatever it is that you're putting down, in our case it's just aggregate base for our trail system, so there's not a lot of risk in creating any pollution, maybe some like turbidity or something, and or fines, which could cause problems. Like you have a big construction project, you do a lot of grading, and then you get a lot of rain, and it washes all these fines that you've created by digging the dirt up down into the creek. And where it used to be all these cobbles and boulders is now filled with a bunch of fines, and it just changes the entire environment of that creek. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, and there's all this mud and stuff at the bottom of the creek where there should have been rocks and
Yep.
good habitat for all this aquatic life, and now it's just like destroyed. And what do you do, like to do stream bed restoration work at that point in time? It's a huge undertaking. You have to like take it all down and rebuild an entire stream bed. And so there's been a lot of effort put into like, well, how do we help these projects and these industries like understand the impacts, understand what it could cause. Nobody's like, oh well, it's just a little dirt, just a little dirt, it's not going to hurt anything. And I talk to contractors all the time, and the younger guys especially,
Yeah.
their initial responses are always like, it's just a little bit of dirt. Like go out to the valley. These guys are out there with their tractors towing a blade, and there's a cloud dust 150 feet tall behind
Oh my
a dust cloud
gosh.
150 feet tall behind them, and they're doing that for 100 acres. And you can't tell me that dust is not way worse than the trucks that we're driving in and out of our site. And it's like, well, it's a valid point. I mean, it's a great point, and there's not a lot that can be said in as a rebuttal to that. But it's about we have to. It's a little bit of baby steps. It's like
Yeah.
it's the
Everyone
same
has to do
thing
their
with
part. Just because this dude is throwing up a
yeah.
cloud of dust doesn't mean you can just let all this runoff go into the stream and, like you said, pollute the waterbed. It's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's a lot about awareness. Like, if they know what the effects could be, you show them a picture of a dead fish floating in a pool of water that's all muddy, and you say, it died because all this runoff. Look at this runoff that came in here,
Hmm.
and it destroyed its habitat, and then it killed these fish. Well,
Do you
then
like
it sticks
drinking
with
clear
you a little
water
bit.
or do you like drinking muddy water? What's your preference? Oh, you don't like
Yeah.
muddy water? Well, neither does the fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I know that I don't know if you guys have ever used this or not, but I saw it was a couple years back. I don't know what the material was called, but it was a replacement for asphalt that was porous. And so instead of having to have huge retention ponds in parking lots and things like that to capture the runoff, the water was able to go through this surface that was a replacement for asphalt and permeate down into the ground to go into like aquifers and things like that. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, oh yeah, and I've seen it implemented on some projects before for
Okay.
sidewalks too, like they do it, and you have to also design a base underneath the asphalt or sidewalk that is permeable. Typically, you have a impermeable surface, and you put another impermeable surface on top of it, sort of the structure of a roadway. And so you have to put a permeable base underneath the permeable surface. And then underneath that, you have to think about, okay, no matter what, the water's going to come through and it's going to concentrate because water is polar. It's going to attract, I think, ionic bonds. I'm not a chemist, but they attract to each other, and then they kind of concentrate and concentrate and concentrate. They're going to go somewhere, and they're going to try to take some stuff with it as it goes. And so what's underneath, where's it going to go, and what's it going to cause? Because you don't want to end up with a bunch of potholes. I don't know if you have a large asphalt parking lots and it's a lot of sheet flow, and then you don't get a lot of concentrated flows because there's not enough elevation difference, it's maybe a better application. But if you have, a lot of elevation changes in projects, you have more of a chance of a concentrated flow because that water's all going to be flowing down elevation and concentrating as it gathers other water and other things. And so sometimes it's better to have a flow off to the side into a collection, whatever it is, a concrete line ditch or storm drain system. So you can, number one, maintain it better.
Right.
Constructability, it's simple to construct and, easy to design. And so typically, I like to, I don't have any objection to the old way. But yeah, the permeable solutions are good in certain applications too. And I'm sure that somebody else can come on here and we can have a chat about it and enlighten me in all kinds of things that I don't know about it. I know that on my projects, it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're doing that. Let's see how it works out. I won't be around long enough to see it fail. And that's a success probably. If it fails while I'm still around, then
here in San Antonio, we have really bad mosquitoes. So the only issue with retention ponds is if you don't maintain them, then of course the mud and muck kind of solidifies at the bottom. So then it really retains the water for an extended period of time instead of the water actually soaking into the ground, which that's the whole point of the retention ponds around here, is for the water permeate down into the aquifer. But if you're not maintaining it, all that mud creates like a thick layer that the water is then not able. And so most of it then evaporates up, but not until after the mosquitoes have made a mess of it with their eggs and multiplied tenfold. But yeah, I remember our HOA was having a whole conversation. They had to get some kind of maintenance guy out into the retention pond that's down by our park in the neighborhood. And they have to clean up that bed, I think, once a year to keep it to where it's actually functioning like it's supposed to. But I guess it's part of the maintenance of it from day to day. As we get up here on the hour, I wanted to ask you back to like a technology perspective, what would you like to see change or improve in your industry that you think technology could be used to leverage? And where do you see technology changing in your industry that's going to just put things light years ahead in the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
I mean, we already see a lot of that change on the engineering side because through technology now, like all the old style of needing to calc out for any kind of column or beam design or, bridge or whatever it is, like you don't need to do any of that math anymore. These guys, I don't do a lot of design. I do a lot of the management stuff. So I see it after the fact. But a lot of their stuff, they just, it's generated for them and they plug it into their designs. And that's been a big change that's becoming more and more prevalent. And especially from like a business owner perspective, all the contracting, all the front end stuff of projects, like you could just have that drawn up and put in your parameters and you don't have to spend a bunch of time drawing up agreements. It's just, they really streamlined that side of business ownership. And as far as the future, I mean, it's hard for me to really conceptualize at this point in time. I mean, my job primarily focuses so much on interface with people It's a lot of talking through why we're doing something, listening to the opposition of something like this coastal project we spoke about, public relations where some HOA president doesn't want us to put it in because he's worried about transients or whatever it is, increased traffic in their local roadway system because now there's this nice, parking facility and walking path where before it wasn't there. And so we have to talk to them about the benefits of these projects and listen to their concerns and try to address them in a reasonable way. And so I think that all of that type of all those types of responsibilities that I feel like is a large portion of my job nowadays. It's hard to see like that being something that gets replaced, but I definitely see like from a public relations standpoint, being able to just feed information in and then generate updates for websites, upload pictures or media to whatever AI based website, and then they generate like, oh, okay, here's an entire report based on like what we did this week. Here's the reductions. Here's the projected end dates based on what we gave it. And that's all stuff that I would do before that I can see easily just being done for me by a computer. I don't necessarily need to be sitting there and mapping out the schedule. If I put a baseline in the beginning and I say like, this is what we're done, this is what's finished, here's some pictures, and they could just put a report together and we can send that out as sort of either update a website for public to be able to go and get updated on, or send out a mailer, or send out, emails or whatever it is. Like that could all be automated, and
Yep.
it would make a lot of things easier from just being able to be more transparent with, the public and then whatever other, stakeholders are parts of projects. I mean, sometimes you got 10 different agencies that really have some kind of stake in a project. Coastal projects, for example, has got all kinds of different parties that are interested. And they don't necessarily want to be sitting in on a meeting once a week to hear, all the nitty gritty details of what's happening. They just want to be able to quickly go and find some information if they have to update somebody else on what's happening with a certain
Very high
project.
level, right? They don't want to dive down into all the nuance of it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's incredible to see where technology's gone in my industry, both on the IT side of things and with AI. And I can't even imagine where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years. It's the level of automation we've already reached, and we're in like the infancy of really what it can do. I'd like to use it for client acquisition, and hopefully, as we build up our client base, we can hire on more technicians. There's a lot of other companies that use it to eliminate jobs. We want to use it to add employees to our company. The big part of what makes us different on the IT side of things is our client relationships that we have. We try to get clients to see us as an extension of their team and not some outside consultants, which is different than a lot of other IT companies. I think there's an opportunity there for us to add more technicians or our client base and things like that with the AI, versus as other companies are just looking to eliminate. Like, oh, if I can implement these AI automations, I can maybe get rid of 3 jobs, and that's 3 less people that I have to employ. So it's unfortunate, but there's I think some people that are going to have to retrain and switch to different. I don't know how AI is going to do what you do, where you interface with like 10 different government agencies and somehow get them all to come to the table and be in agreement to do, like you were talking about, the coastal trail. That just sounds like a feat of unimaginable proportions to get everyone to come to the party on that and sign off on it. And the bridge example you gave earlier too, you being able to drag all those people kicking and screaming across the finish line, I think is fantastic. You're a negotiator through and through to get all those people on the same page.
Yeah. It's interesting the path that your life takes. You just never know, where you're going to go and how it's all going to shake out. 30 years ago, being a young person and looking forward, there's just no way you could ever map out. I'm a family man now. I got 2 kids now, and I'm fully settled down, and I'm just enjoying this stage of life. And I would have never been able to see it, even envision, and even being anything like this at all. So very grateful and appreciative of all of it, really.
For sure. Well, do you have any other closing thoughts?
No, I really appreciate you having me on, and it's been a pleasure. And hopefully, I didn't go on too many tangents about projects. Sometimes I get
No, I mean,
reminisce on it.
we're here to hear about what you guys do, what you've done, how you got to where you are today, and all of that. So I appreciate you sharing all that. And I mean, the bridge thing was no small feat. So it's it deserves more than a 5-minute conversation. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. And thank you again for stopping in and being our guest today. Maybe there's an opportunity down the road we can have another conversation.
Yeah, find out what other new exciting things are going on. Love to do it.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Dave. You have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.